Hello everyone, my name is Sammy Davis, Jr. You may recognize me from the novel Everything Is Illuminated, kind of an important character. Anyway, I am here to talk to you people about sex. Now, I'm sure you're all very familiar with this subject, but one question that just always seems to come up with Everything Is Illuminated is, why is there so much sex? Well, I think that I can provide you with an answer because, as a dog, I can offer a perspective that you may not have heard before, that you probably haven't heard before. Okay, well, I know that, at the beginning of the book, when I'm basically trying to get with Jonathan, I'm sorry, look, that wasn't about sex then either, okay? It's not about sex. For me, it was, it was about establishing me as my own character, as more than just this sidekick dog, You guys called it mentally deranged. I call it feminism. Anyway. So, the same thing goes for the rest of the book. It's not about sex physically. It's not, Jonathan Safran Foer is not a pornographer. He wants you to see things about the characters that you might not have caught if you hadn't had all this sexuality and sexual references. So one really good example of this is Sofialka. Sofialka, from the beginning, he's disgusting. From the moment we meet him, he's using disgusting sexual references, like when Traken's wagon falls in the river and he's talking to the townspeople about what happened. He says that Traken is deader than he was when he was a bullet in his father's cock. Now, nobody would use that kind of phrase unless they were really gross, right? And then when he's talking about Traken's wife, the only reason he remembers her is because she had, and I quote, a voluptuous set of tits that he wanted to suck on. Now, I don't know about you, but when I read this in Jonathan's letter to Alex, I just thought it was so disgusting, and you're automatically disgusted by the character, and he's disgusted a lot. Another example is that he just masturbates in public, and he's a rapist. I think that Jonathan Safran Foer approaches the first sexual act to be described in the book is Broad's rape. And this is because Jonathan Safran Foer wants to get the lustful side of sex out of the way so that he can, approach the more complicated facets of the theme. He has Sofialka rape Broad, and that just makes him an even more repulsive character than he already was. So, sex is used to characterize the people of Trek and Broad. Sofialka is also a foil for Broad, who represents the other side of sex in the novel, and it's just like this it's not about natural instincts anymore. Broad never takes pleasure in having sex with the Colker. She does it to accommodate love. That's the quote. She turned her back to the wall so that she could accommodate love. And I think that characterizes her relationship with the Colker as a whole. She doesn't really, she doesn't enjoy having sex with him, but she does it because she loves him. And no other character in the book is driven as purely by affection and devotion only, and not by lust. And I think that also Broad's nebulous origins, her emergence from a river and not from a human mother, already places her above natural human instincts. So we never really think of Broad as a lustful character. She represents the more complicated side of sex. And I made this visual aid. I wanted to make something on PowerPoint, but it's really hard for me. For me, in this, I thought that the fact that I basically tore it apart with my claws just shows the animal side of sex. It's all, I use my claws to make this, but then at the same time, it is art. So for me, this artwork symbolizes a symbol, and the symbol that it's symbolizing is sex. Okay. Sex isn't just about characterization, though. It's also another theme in the book. But it's an antithesis to the destruction and devastation that the rest of the book is filled with. Now, Safran's crippled arm is so weird because Foer has it as this source of great arousal to the women of Track and Broad, and in making it that, Foer juxtaposes death and sex. But what is sex if not ultimately the creation of life? And he does the same thing when he says that Safran's first orgasm and the conception of his daughter happens in the middle of a bombing. It's the same idea of destruction happening alongside the creation of life. And Broad's rape is another good example of this. It's a sexual act, but it's not, it's innately a destructive and hateful act. But he has it happen on Trackham Day while all these other people around here they're not having sex, they're making love. And they're creating life, and they have their sex glow. And Foer's quoted, I'm quoting Foer, as saying that this sex glow basically just said, we're here and we're alive. So, I think that ultimately, sex in Everything is Illuminated isn't just anatomy and instinct. It's also, it's power, and it's submission, and it's lust, and love, and it's pain and pleasure, and it's everything that sex is in real life. So, Foer isn't just making a theme, and he's not just telling us about the characters in his book, he's also telling us about ourselves as humans and dogs.
Excellent, Sammy Davis Jr. I would like to know a little bit more, though, about your painting.
I totally forgot to include
Yes, so can you go there?
I think that the destructive technique really just captures the idea of destruction in the book. But in destroying this, I also made something. So it's kind of this creation alongside destruction that's so important to the book. But yeah, it was just a visual aid because, I don't know, like I said, I tried to make a PowerPoint, but it's kind of hard to get paused.
There's no opposable thumbs, I'm sure that was a problem. You want to talk about your artistic choices or anything?
Well, the red is lust, and the white is the purity that Broad represents. So the red is Sophialka, and it's really taken apart and gross. And then the white is, it's messy, but it's like Broad's relationships with everyone around here. They're messy relationships, but ultimately they're still pure and white.
Other questions, guys? We are at almost 8 minutes, so she's fine on time, but if you have specific questions, you certainly may ask.
Are there any other characters that you would talk about with in relation to creation and destruction?
Yeah, Safran, well, I guess I talked about him. But I think that I also analyzed Safran a lot, and I don't know why I chose not to include that, but for me, he represented submission. When I was writing about, or analyzing this, I thought, my main idea that I started with was that Jonathan Safran Foer used sex to represent life. And for Broad, it was love. For Broad, it was love. For Sophialka, it was lust. For Safran, it was submission, because in some ways, he was definitely taken advantage of by the women in his town. He never really enjoyed having sex with them. He just did it because he thought it was his duty, and he just went along with it. So he was submission. And for me, Yankel was pain, because he hadn't experienced any sexual intimacy with anyone since his wife left him, and the thought of it just filled him with pain. And then there was also the sex glow, and that for me represented procreation and just posterity and what was to come. But yeah.
Okay. I think we're out of time, so thank you. Nicely done, Sammy Davis.